That looks like we're live. Hello. I should be
That
getting
looks
an
like we're live.
audible. Yep, that's in
Hello.
the right
Should be
place.
getting an audible.
And looking at the meter on XSplit, yeah, that's bouncing into the yellow. So I think we're good to go. Good morning. It's September 10th, 2022. It's 11:01 a.m. And this is the Saturday edition of Live Windows Training-DougBetts is my YouTube channel. Watch goes on the table because I have one participant who is kind enough to give me text messages if something's amiss. And I'd sure like to turn that up even louder, but I've got the volume all the way up. I think I need to go to another place in the iPhone and check on that. The Zoom session is open. The waiting room is turned off, so you're welcome to come in, and we'll go take a look at the chat room because I have not been reading the chat room. I've been preparing for today's session. And why do I not see? Oh, I don't have a picture in picture there. Oh, that's right, because I need to do that one. Okay. So RM says morning or afternoon. Alan Barsna says hello. There's Ken Stout saying he'll be late, maybe late. Tony Wallow, hello. Greg Guy, RM is Robert. Iowa Hank Jonathan. Ran Israel. Let's see, I guess I should. Now I'm looking for, I'll stop and read when I see 3 question marks or orange. Other than that, I might stop and read comments, but most of this is all saying hello. And I agree. My condolences to anyone in the Commonwealth states for we've lost Queen Elizabeth II, I believe it is. Now, some people use a hammer run over this. So that's the first reference to today's content about destroying the content on a hard drive. And in the thumbnail, I showed using pliers on one of these drives. Oh, this one. Yeah. And this is not actually one that I'm tasked with destroying it. I was wondering, a car, it seems like that wouldn't crush anything because the rubber would just drive over it. I don't think it would crush metal. And a hammer, sure. I've seen old PCs on the curbside still with their hard drive inside. Yeah, some people don't realize that you can, and some people don't realize what information on the hard drive might be usable by the criminal mind. Now, on the other side, there's people who are a little over panicked about it because the level of technical skill and the level of criminal motivation that it takes to find some of that seemingly obscure, innocuous information from a hard drive and using that to actually attempt a criminal act and then to actually succeed with a criminal act, yeah, it's a little bit far-fetched. If somebody's got that much criminal intent upon you, they can get you with when you're walking out of the grocery store. That point can be argued, but anyway, most instances where a hard drive is not properly wiped, it's not going to wind up with a criminal activity. So there's hello from John Aloy, Jonathan Lawn Dog. What other names have I skipped over here? Neil, hello. Neodymium magnet. If there was a magnet that is supposed to be strong enough to affect a hard drive, I'd sure like to demonstrate that. I know that some people have tried it on YouTube videos. Maybe even Mythbusters tried it. I don't recollect if they were successful. And that would be something that would be something that a criminal mind would be doing, to use a magnet, because I think it'd be a whole lot easier just to drill a hole through it. A breakfast with hot sauce, hash browns, Jonathan Wintermute. There's Ken Stout. He's listening. And I'm caught up. Darren Gilholm, John Aloy again. All right. Nobody's in Zoom, so this might be us. Doug solo today. Where do I want to go next? This drive that I had in the thumbnail, I chose this one for the thumbnail because this was the only one in my multiple stacks of hard drives that I could open with a Phillips screwdriver. The others need one of those unusual Torx, similar to Torx. I don't think it's quite a Torx. And I know that I have one around here, but I couldn't find the driver set that has the right bit. I had several other driver sets that got close and kind of sort of would wiggle into one of these screws, but not the right one. So this drive was out of a file server. It's a SAS drive, SAS. And the note that I had on it, you can see SAS in the upper left. I don't have that autofocus on for that camera. You know, and I could show a little bit more of that with this camera over here, couldn't I? Let's see how that works. I don't think I have autofocus on that either. I'll go manually change the focus so I can show a little bit more about this server drive, because these are hot swappable. And this is a cassette tray that you can pull out easily. Did I turn that the right way? Let me try moving this slider the other way. Yeah, that looks more like it. Yeah. So SAS in the upper right, 6 gigabit per second. 146 gigabyte is the capacity of this drive. This was a boot drive on a server. And the way that works is this lever opens this latch, and then it slides into a slot, and then you close the lever. And that's how it goes in. And this one was defective. I've got a note on it that says makes a loud noise. And I had this happen to a few of the drives that were in this particular server. And so I'd always have spare drives available that I could swap out while the server's still running, because the boot drives were mirrored drives. The data drives were RAID drives, RAID 5. Isn't that what's called? Yeah, where they're striped across multiple drives. One of the drives goes bad, or it starts flashing yellow, or it gives an audible warning. You take one out and put the other one in, and it just automatically catches up on the fly. So this one was making a very loud, scratchy kind of noise, but the server was still up and running. So when I discovered that, first thing I did is I just pulled it out to stop this noise, and then got the replacement drive and put it in. Jose, I'm going to come over and say hello to you. You've got your camera off. Are you able to unmute your microphone and just say hello?
Hello there, Doug. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you. And in, let's see, in YouTube chat, your name shows up as what? Photomix Media, I think. I don't think you even talked in chat today, did you?
No,
So,
I haven't. But and also in chat, I'm also as photo mix medium.
yeah, I was just trying to give the audience a connection between your name in chat and your voice. And then here's Chris Garrett. Hello, Chris. How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Someone was wanting to, Doug. Someone was wanting to buy my eBay account today.
Buy your eBay account?
Yes, they said they just started the eBay, and eBay makes you wait 6 months before you can
Yeah.
start selling, and they want to sell right now. I
Oh,
knew it's a scam.
yeah, it's probably a scam. I I'm not aware of how long eBay makes you wait after creating an account before you can sell, but yeah, I wouldn't want to touch that, because who knows what information they might be trying to gather about you
Yeah,
once
I know.
they
I just
gain
laughed at them.
access. Yeah. All right. Jose or Chris, do you have any questions to bring to the table, or are you just in Zoom to hang out and participate?
Just hang out.
All right.
Same here.
All right. Very good. Then I'm going to continue. Come back here to the chat room, see if there's anything else for me to catch up. Other people saying hello. Lawn Dog, give us a little information on SAS drives, their usage and purpose, and why they're used in enterprise servers. Well, that's a good request. And I bet there's other people in our community that are better able to answer that off the top of their head. But it is commonplace. This was a Dell server, a rack mount server, and seems that every time I bought them, they have SAS drives available. I believe they're fast. I'm going to say that they're faster. And this is off the top of my head. I haven't confirmed this. They're faster. I don't want to say more reliable because these have not been highly reliable. I've had too many of them go bad. They are more expensive. I think they're particularly suited for RAID. If there's other people in the community in the chat room that can answer that better, please go ahead and give some responses. It is SAS as opposed to SATA or IDE. It's a different kind of connector. And let me show the connector here. Keyboard, camera. You know what? Let me bring that camera up here so it's a little easier to deal with. All right, let's try that. See, there's the edge connector, and you don't plug the wires onto it. You slide this into a slot in the server, and the socket that you're sliding it into has the connectors that go on there. So it does not have that L-shaped connector that you have with SATA connectors, but it's kind of similar in that there's a short side and there's a long side. And it seems to me that there was maybe it was an adapter cartridge or something that would allow me to put SATA drives into it. I'm not sure that that's true. It seems like there was some other variation on drives that I could put in there that were not as expensive. So here I do see some people responding. And these have been around, I believe, longer than SATA has. When you install a replacement drive, did you have to use the exact same drive? No, I did not have to, but I did need to match the mirrored drive. If I put in a higher capacity drive, then it was only going to operate at the lower capacity of the other side of the mirror. Now, something else that I've done with these that is, I think, a little bit off book is for backup purposes. Instead of making an image backup of the boot drive, I would occasionally pull one of these out, put a fresh one in, and I would label this that it has an image of the boot drive as of a certain date. So that if the mirror drives crashed together, if the operating system became corrupted, that'd be corrupted on both of those drives. So then I could take them out and put this back in. Should be able to boot the system up. The idea behind mirror drives is that you have two drives of the same capacity, and they both have everything. So that if one of them goes bad, you can pull that out, and the computer keeps running. When you put the replacement drive back in, it automatically remirrors on the fly, and you're back in business. Hello, is running late. Yes, it's a scam about that eBay account. Basically, you give them control of your account. They can do anything they want after that with it. Then also they're working off of your reputation, and maybe they just want to start collecting money and not sending any product. SAS, serial attached SCSI, yeah, that's what it stands for. SAS is to SCSI what SATA is to IDE. Okay, that makes sense. The old SCSI drives was yet a different connector, so SAS was a newer form of SCSI. And SCSI, Small Computer System Interface. Let the information flow. This particular drive rotates at 15,000 RPM as opposed to the 7,200 RPM that we typically see in hard drives, or what's the other one? 5500, I think it is, for the slower spinning drives in the 2.5-inch and 3.5-inch family. The physical interface is identical to SATA. Most SAS adapters can accept SATA drives, but a SATA controller cannot accept a SAS drive. Okay, that makes sense. So I was wondering with that connect, as a matter of fact, how about, what if I try this? Where do I have that? Here is a, let's go to this camera. Here is a cable for attaching to a SATA drive. It's got those L-shaped sockets on it. The other side is a USB 3.0. Will this fit onto the terminals of the SAS drive? I'm guessing this is not going to work, but because this adapter has some extra fluff to it, some extra. Yeah, see, it's got that boundary, that border between the two connectors that you can see between the two L shapes that would not allow it to plug onto here. But the actual connectors inside the computer, would they fit onto here? I think that's what RAN is implying there, and I haven't tried it. I guess I was trying to get out what type of RAID system for recovery was being used, because there are particulars and idiosyncrasies that must be adhered to in order for a proper recovery. I was referring to the boot drives as mirrored. Well, that's RAID 1. And RAID 5 is where you have to have at least 3 drives or more, and the data is what they call striped across them, so that if any one of those drives goes bad, the system is able to calculate the missing data and therefore continue operation. Then you need to replace the drive that went bad. Now, what type of RAID system? Yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting at there, and it might be beyond my knowledge. I'm not sure. I would not call myself an expert in RAID or even in drive technologies. I do what I need. I know and learn what I need to do for my business, and then I go a bit beyond that when it becomes interesting to me. The guys at Google that manage data center, that's an interesting job to have, and I'm really curious what system they use. I think they publish a fair amount of that information. You're not going to find where their centers are, I don't think. I've seen a lot of videos on how the data center is run. I don't really know if they're using something custom or something that's been in use in data centers for a long time. 5400 was the slower speed. Thank you, Intermute. SAS and SATA drives are not compatible when it comes to their connectors. Now, didn't somebody else say they're identical? Yeah, Rand says the physical interface is identical to SATA. Most SAS adapters can accept SATA drives. SAS adapter. This is not a SAS adapter that I was trying. This is a SATA adapter. So if I were using a SAS adapter, it's saying that it could accept a SATA drive. But a SATA controller, which this would be, basically connecting to that, cannot accept a SAS drive. Okay, so that means I was trying to do that backwards of what he was suggesting. There might be a converter, but again, don't quote me on that. And about that scam. So I'm going to walk away from my chair for a moment because I gotta go turn the air conditioner on. This morning I was watching one of those big YouTubers. What was it called? Oh, Ken Stout Live. And I heard this noise. What's that? I paused the video and I heard it again outside, kind of a boom. And I went out my front door and it was thunder. It had rain this morning here. That was unexpected. All right, away from the microphone. So because of that, it's more muggy than I'm accustomed to. Alexa, how's the humidity?
Currently, the humidity is 47%. Would you also like to check the chance of rain?
Yes.
It might rain today. There's a 40% chance at 9 p.m.
40% chance of rain at 9 p.m. I realize she's a little bit quiet there for you to hear. And she said 40% humidity. When I checked earlier this morning, it was 60. Yesterday, it was like 17. Okay, so
I just pulled that up. There is a little bit of rain in your area.
yeah, I was
And
surprised
lightning
that.
strikes.
Yeah, I had no idea that it was even expected because I don't look. It's so dry here. I never am checking to see if there's rain expected. I will check and see what the high temperature is expected to be. Now, what brought up this subject for today? Because I have a computer here that a client asked me to wipe the hard drive in preparation for recycling. I said, well, what do you mean by recycling? Are you going to give the computer to somebody? Oh, no. Her husband's business, every 6 months ago or so, takes equipment to recyclers, but she wanted her hard drive wiped first. So that's this computer, a Vio. It's an old laptop. Certainly doesn't have any current data on it. The label on here says Windows XP. I did start it up, and I think it came up as Windows 7. Don't really care about that. And what I did in pursuing that is I just went to Google drive wiping utilities and took the first one that I found and made a USB thumb drive for booting it, and then tried to boot that computer on it, and it wouldn't boot. And it turns out that computer is too old to boot from USB. It has no capabilities of booting from USB. So then, okay, what I'm gonna do with this? I'm gonna take the computer apart and physically destroy the drive, or connect it to another computer and use the wipe utility. I kind of think it's all a bit overkill anyway. Because of what I said earlier, the level of skill that it takes to pull data off of a computer and actually do something criminal with it, then the computer has to fall into criminal hands for that to even occur. But my client asked me to do it, so I'm going to do it in one fashion or another. Let's go say hello to somebody else in Zoom. Hello, Jeff Ryman.
Good morning.
Do you have any comments, questions to bring to the table, or just here to hang out with us?
Well, I just got here, but I was involved with a project where we sanitized several hundred computers on a DOE project I worked on back in 2009. And we used a degausser for the drives we were unable to wipe. Now, some of them had sensitive information on it, but I will say, you stick the drive in the box and shut it up and you hit the button, it makes this big boom sound. Quite satisfying, actually.
Yeah, sounds like
it was fun. Actually, I led a team that did that. So, and we wiped the drives with software where we were able to. We'd boot from a flash drive or a CD and wipe them, and that was for systems that contained no sensitive information. If anything had been damaged or had sensitive information on it, we degaussed them. And then the drives were sent someplace to be mechanically destroyed after that.
All right. Now, the degausser, is that a magnetic operation?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, the magnetic field in this one was strong enough it actually fried the circuit boards as well.
Oh, all right. Wow.
So there was not much left to steal anything from at that point, supposedly. But it had classified information on it, which we normally didn't. They would be ground up or opened up, and they would destroy the platters as well.
All right. What is it about that process that would make the noise?
I'm not sure, actually. It might be the collapse of the magnetic field from the coil made some type of a sound. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
You know, when you're at a high-powered power station and the hum that it makes continually, that kind of makes supports the idea that there's something about a magnetic field collapsing over coiled wires that could make
Yeah.
a sound.
I mean, I'm guessing, but that's my best guess based on what little electromagnetic theory I remember from college.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, Jim.
Uh,
Hey, Ray.
Looking a
And
little sleepy-eyed there, Jim. You up late for all of the pole watching stuff?
No, no, no. I did my duty. My last day was Wednesday.
No, okay. I missed some of the other sessions. I had hernia surgery yesterday, so
Oh, joy! I've been there.
robotic assisted laparoscopy. So I got 3 little incisions, and that's all. And they fixed everything from the inside. So sore
I know,
where they
Doug.
cut
I
through
know
the muscles, but hardly any swelling otherwise. I'm very pleased. Haven't had to take any pain meds yet.
and and for those who don't know, Jim's reference about his public duty, he was working at voting polls or voting locations in his
Yeah, I'll be
community where
back
they
at
had
it.
elections.
I'll be back at it on Tuesday. Tuesday's the
Ah.
actual the main primary for Delaware, and the polls are open for 13 hours. I have to be there an hour before, and I'll probably be there an hour after things
Ooh.
close. So I'm looking at a 15-hour day.
Wow. Now I heard you say earlier that the turnout was really low, seemed to be low. Is that still
Yeah,
the
the early
case?
voting for the primary is remarkably low, actually. But it's
Yeah.
I think part of it is the fact that it's the first time Delaware has done early voting, and I don't know that they heavily advertised it.
All right.
So
All right.
Do you have assigned polls you're supposed to go to vote?
to vote, yes, you've always had that.
Well, in Nevada now, here in Las Vegas, we can go to any open polling place when you have stuff like that.
I've heard some places have changed to that.
Yeah,
Well,
you
they-
can do that. You can do that for early voting for the primary. I don't know if you can do that for the early voting for the general. We'll see. I expect that they'll be getting in contact with me for the general as well, but we'll see what happens.
No. Chris, you started to say something earlier. You're muted.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, someone's mentioned Department of Defense WIPE. Acronis, I know you use Macron, but Acronis has a wiping utility in their USB flash.
Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a deal what utility you use for wiping. I mean, it's just not that complicated of a task. Just write ones and zeros all over the place and do it again and again and again. And it just doesn't sound like such a big deal to me what product that you use. Now, some people might take exception to that. I don't know. Let's go, since you made reference to chat, next thing that I was going to notice here is Ryan saying, Vio, isn't that Sony? I think it is. Yeah, it is. It says Sony right on it. And Rand says, I miss those old type laptop keyboards. I'm not sure what that's reference to. What about this keyboard is it that would be enjoyable? It's just not that much, not anything unusual. Where is my focus? I guess it's that close. Yeah.
I don't like laptop keyboards at all. I prefer the
Yeah.
big ones. In fact, on my new
Okay.
build, I bought one of these Logitech metal mechanical keyboards.
Well, if you're going to hold it, if you're going to show the audience, hold it up again.
Yeah, well, I'm caught on a cord a little bit.
Yeah, and your virtual thing is.
Yeah, let me get rid of that for a second.
Yeah. All right.
I don't remember which model it is, but I really like these old mechanical switches. I first used a computer in the days of the IBM AT, and they had those big, massive AT keyboards, and I miss those.
Yeah. Okay, let me catch up with Chad here, and then we'll get back on track. Both SATA SAS use the same pinout for data and power connections, although the connectors themselves are slightly different. The SATA connection requires two connectors, one for data, one for power. The SAS connection merges power and data into a single edge connected cable, even though the number of contact points looks similar to me. It's just me adding that. Selden Ball. Here we have licensed companies which shred disk drives. Drilling a hole through one is another option. Yes, the company that I have here is like pretty big, pretty well known, I think even internationally, and they of course get the certificates, and they have big shredding machines. They just put the metal through it, and they get physically shredded. SAS drive will accept a set of SATA cables. Okay, so I have a SAS drive here. I could try putting the internal cables in this computer on it in a little bit if we get to that. Degausser, ain't that what they used on CRTs to demagnetize the picture tube? I'm going to start skipping through a little bit, looking for 3 question marks or orange, but I'm seeing some my name here. I use Department of Defense level scrub data software, ones and zeros 10 times, takes 4 hours. You bring up an interesting tidbit of transformer information. Oftentimes the hum you hear is from the laminations within the transformer. They are electromagnetically vibrating. Oh, interesting. The electromagnetic field in the transformer laminates are actually vibrating, and what causes the noise is also a sign that the transformer could be breaking down. Very hard to explain things in 200 characters, but you did a pretty decent job there. Hernia surgery, and then cyber scrub. Talking about voting for Congress. Again, Doug, when I was in school for computers, we were told there's software with the NSA that can reconstruct the bits on a mechanical hard drive platter. There's a faint bit of magnetism on the platter. They have a way of measuring this and determine the probability of what bit it was. Was it 1 or 0? And then the program continues to reconstruct until it determines that it is a viable piece of data. I may not have explained that well, but supposedly there's software that reads and recreates through algorithms the probability of data. Yes, that's pretty well worded of my understanding. I could not have described it like that. But yeah, it's not enough to just do one pass through the drive of ones and zeros if your drive is going to be targeted by somebody who has that level of resources and that level of motivation to try to recover something from your drive. But for most civilians, civilians isn't the right word, but for most people, there's not going to be anyone with that level of capability going after your computer.
You mean normals?
Normals, there you go. Normals. Even some of us who might describe ourselves as abnormals. I can't imagine.
Abby who?
Yeah. I can't imagine anyone going after any of my content for that level of effort. Now, I have had some clients who have information on their computers regarding multi-million-dollar accounts they have. That might be a thing. Or, of course, industrial espionage could be targeted for that. So let me see what I skipped through from what I was going on Lawn Dogs. I like these better than modern chiclet style keyboards, Kilke keyboards. And that's on the between Jeff and Ryan. There's 3 question marks. So I'm going to be trying to reduce my focus on chat to the 3 question marks, and when you hit me in orange. My understanding is that there are devices which recover erased data by ever so slightly offsetting the read heads and reading the fringe magnetic fields. That sounds theoretically likely. There's chit chat there. I still have a degausser. It's a collector's piece these days. Chit chat, chit chat, chit chat. And I'm calling it chit chat when I see them addressing somebody else with the @ symbol. Lawn Dog, even Steve Gibson's SpinRite program does something similar. Steve analyzes a sector within a sector, and in the segment of bits allocating the sector, he will analyze the entire spot, which is
he's waiting for more space to type the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, he's feverishly typing away there, about to press the enter key for the finish of that. But Steve Gibson's software isn't trying to recover. He's specifically trying to recover from sectors that are not responding normally. I don't think a person would be using that to try to recover data from a drive that has been wiped by writing ones and zeros.
But way back in the day with the early drives,
Yeah.
The head alignment wasn't nearly as good on the old drives, which used MFM and RLL recording. I think it was
Yeah.
called Shugart stuff anyway. And the drive heads would move a little bit over time, and SpinRite was very good at recovering that sort of information and rewriting it. That's what he
Right.
originally wrote it for. I don't have as much confidence in using it on newer drives with integrated electronics. I'm not sure it has much to do, but I'm not a drive expert.
Yeah. Well, the version that's out for the public now is only for spinning drives. The new version is going to be for SSDs and then NVMe's.
Hmm.
And I have these multiple stacks of drives. In fact, I came across one of them that is labeled as reallocated sectors is the specific problem on that drive, and it's a 1 terabyte drive. So I'm thinking I may try that with the edition of SpinRite that's currently available to the public that I have 2 licenses for currently. Going back to catch up here, finish, analyze entirely the spot, which is not always used entirely, but you will use the entire sector to determine what bits should be there and get your hard drive going again in a spot that has gone bad. And again, I'll repeat, SpinRite has to do with reallocated sectors, not other problems with a drive. Do not use it when your drive has other problems, because that's going to probably make it more difficult to recover from organizations like $300 Recovery or others. Dennis, pretty sure my question was ignored regarding Tropical Storm K. So did he have 3 question marks previously? Control F, question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't, let's see, let's go up. Let's scroll upwards. There it is.
Oh, he's
back.
talking about the rain that got dumped on you.
Oh, there. That's remnants of the TSK dumping rain on Southern California. Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was because my brother Stan was at his son and daughter-in-law's home for last week or so. Stan's the one that's traveling in a van across the country. And they're having really heavy rain there in Southern California. Tropical Storm K. I haven't even been watching the news enough to know that it was referred to as K. All right, so then let's get back. And Dennis, it was not ignored intentionally. I did miss it. I just missed it. You would not use Steve Gibson software to recover a drive that was erased. Agreed. William Dawson, data could recover by people who have enough money, but is your data worth it to them? Maybe the government may find it worth it. I don't think the government would find it worth it for my data. Maybe somebody from a foreign country. But what we're discussing about recovering data made me comment about how hard drive fails, and you use SpinRite to recover that sector so the drive would reboot and recover. That's all. Okay, good.
It amuses me as a side comment. It amuses me how important the average person thinks they are that the government's that interested.
Yeah. Oh,
they're not.
This. Okay, I'm not going to go down that. I'm going to avoid going down that road. But yeah, I've heard it. You've heard it. Somebody people start talking about how the government's spying on them. No, you're not that interesting.
What?
Was that a surprise to you, Jeff?
No.
Did I just crash your world?
I worked for government contractors my whole life. I'd be surprised if they were that interested in anything I did.
Well, I'll say the same thing for Google and YouTube and who else? Apple. You're not that interesting. If you're that interesting to them, you're not going to be watching my show. I'll tell you that. Your life is way beyond what we're talking about here. Lawn Dog says, thanks again for clarifying everything, Doug. Using SpinRite on a hard drive that has problems other than bad sector on the platter will not repair it and could actually kill the drive. Absolutely. Let's see, chit-chat between people. If it has mechanical problems, if you run SpinRite on a hard drive, it'll put it through some intensive workout, and it's going to take a long time. The drives I've tested can get pretty doggone warm, too hot, depending upon the driver brand. Yeah, and particularly if the drive has a physical problem. It's working it real hard. If it has a physical problem, there's some physical problems that are going to cause it to heat up, and it's probably not the appropriate, SpinRite's not the appropriate tool to be using on it. Please, I think somebody misinterpreting what we're all discussing here. I'm not here to stick up for the common man and his ability to print this data. I'm discussing what's possible. If someone wants to put forth the effort, that's all technical. Absolutely. I'm on the same page with you, Lawn Dog. On the same page with you. And I appreciate your bringing up the conversation. But when that conversation comes up, I have to give the other side of it. Say, you're not that interested. Ryan's, this is weird. Look at this. He did the full at LiveWindowsTraining-DougBetts, but it only highlighted DougBetts. Do I not have my right channel selected right now? Let me go see. Yep, I'm on the wrong channel. I'm on my primary personal channel of DougBetts. But
now we can get in and steal your real data.
Yeah. Well, actually, that channel has some Live Windows Training content from the beginning, and it still still has a banner for Live Windows Training that I put up before I actually created a sub channel. So now, if somebody hits me in orange, it'll somebody does the at Live Windows Training, it'll show up here in orange. It should, or I might have to refresh this to see that. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, there's the test. Yeah, so Jim did that test. Let's see. This is 11:41. I'm gonna go bring this back into.
Let me ask you another related question before you change topics here on the drive recovery.
Okay.
On solid state drives, you don't actually overwrite anything. They use the trim function to reassign locations for storing data and all that. Yeah. I'm just wondering how one actually, quote, wipes a solid state drive. You may not actually. And I would think with the right technologies, it might be easier to recover stuff from a solid state drive than from a properly wiped mechanical drive. But that's beyond my knowledge.
Yeah, that sounds feasible, that maybe you need to be sure whatever wipe utility you're using is specifically for solid state drives, because
what we have, I have one or two items of software that, quote, wipe stuff. But since I have a solid state drive, I just put it to do a, quote, secure erase, where it's just hiding the file location information, because you aren't actually overwriting the sections on the solid state drive, and if you could, that would just be wearing out the drive quicker.
Well, I would think that to overwrite it, you'd have to fill it. You'd have to fill it completely with data that's with ones and zeros that are
right. And with the new technologies, I'm not sure. Do you need low-level access to the solid state drive in order to do something like that?
Maybe.
And I
don't know. Let me get back. Did you finish?
Yeah.
Did you finish that line? Okay. Let me get back to this because I lost my place. Let's where these. Okay, that's in the orange. Okay, this is the one that hit me in orange. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to close this, and that's at 11:41. I'm going to close this. Get back to the live stream here. Refresh this page. And now I'm thinking that they're all going to show up properly orange. Yeah. So then if I pop that out, because now this should show me with that full orange lit up. Yeah. Okay. That's where I was. Ryan agreeing, government spying on me, I'm not that interesting. Uh, could have been. Looks like it could have been from Kay. Chris is referring to this rain here. Wait until we get discussing data recovery on solid state drives of your phone. Here's a test from Jim. Let's have clarification here on what the trim function does. It's my understanding the trim function goes through the drive and determines if a cell is going bad. When it discovers a potentially bad cell or bad cell, it recovers what it can from the cell and reallocates it. Now, when it comes to erasing a solid state drive, the data is still there, but due to the indexing of the hard drive, well, solid state drive, telling where the data is, it's looking for until that is overwritten, it can still be read. Again, a solid state drive has to be written over in the data spot in order for it to not be recovered. So I would think if you were to overwrite all of the drive, you could do that, but you couldn't overwrite the location that a specific file is stored on. And as far as what the trim function does, I'm not capable of describing that. It seems to me like it needs to be doing other things than just determining if a cell is going bad. I've got a notion in my head what I was going to start describing what I think the trim function is, but it's pointless for me to do that because I haven't recently read up on that. I've watched videos, I've read articles in the past and understood them in the past, but not well enough that I could repeat it reliably or even remember it reliably. Junk over it multiple times there, and I think a point that's really worth pointing out here is that if you want to securely erase the content on your SSD that you have deleted, you've deleted files, you want to be sure that those aren't recoverable, you'd have to be using a utility that I would think has the capability of overriding all of the space that is not currently in use by files that are not deleted. So if it can overwrite all of the space that is not currently in use, it seems like that would be a way to securely remove files that or overwrite files that you have deleted. I don't know. That's just my thinking it through. Just to now, when it comes to erasing solid state, yeah, did that. Can still be read. Written over in the data spot. Got that. 3 question marks. The only sure way to make SSD unreadable, hammer to break it up. Yeah. Even these wipe utilities, they're perhaps, and the government level of secure erase, does that protect those drives against the technology that might be available 10 years from now or 20 years from now? Could they come up with some other way to recover latent data? I don't know. But destroying it certainly does. Now, however, could they come up with technology in the future that can take the pieces? You know, back when shredders came around, we thought that was a good thing, but then people started putting together the pieces from a shredder. Could technology down the road be able to take all the shredders that really chop it up really finely? If all those pieces were spread out on 2 pieces of glass and sandwiched, and a future computer take a picture of that from the top and the bottom, you know, get all those pieces laid out to where they're all flat, take a picture of both sides, and then let a computer with artificial intelligence perhaps put it all back together. Maybe.
Yeah, I told my mother I got a shredder now, and I said we could use these shreds if we ever need to send something, pack something. She said no, people might put it back together. I didn't think that was possible, but it might be. I don't know.
It might be, but then again, who's going to be motivated enough to go after that shredded content to find what possibly might be on it? Jim, my head would be shaking too if I weren't looking straight at the camera. Jeff, were you trying to raise your hand there? You're muted. You're muted, Jeff. Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry, my phone was ringing. I didn't want it to. If you have a shredder, it only does long strips.
Yeah,
It's relatively easy to put them together again. If you
it
have it
is.
shreds it into the little chunks, it'd have to be something very important to be worth the effort.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have anything like that normally.
I saw. I think it was a documentary, maybe even from World War II. I'm not sure, but I think it's probably more recent than World War II. But I believe it was China had a classroom sized room of school children putting together shredded paper.
And one thing I'll say about drive platters, I've seen people say that you can drill through 2 or 3 locations with a drill and that renders it unusable. Maybe for you and me, if you have this technology that governments use, they can recover the rest of the platter.
Yeah, well, the thing is that when you drill through it, or even when you open the cover and bend the platter, well, that makes it unrecoverable to technology that we are aware of today, maybe in some secret lab
Well, if the
somewhere.
platter's still flat and you just have 3 holes in it, you've lost the data where the holes were, but the rest of it's
Yeah,
recoverable if you have the fancy equipments like the National Security Agency and all that. But again,
perhaps.
do you have anything worth getting? And that's the
Yeah,
bottom.
to that level of motivation. Yeah. So the part about drilling holes through it, I'm saying, no, somebody's still got enough. If somebody's got the right resources and motivation, they might still be able to get something. Hello, Sam Lazar.
Hello, how you guys going?
Doing good, doing good. How are you today?
Can't complain, can't complain. Very early in the morning, but can't complain.
What time is it where you are?
Nearly 5 a.m. Sunday.
5 a.m. on Sunday. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeehaw. And remind me again where you are. I was about to take a guess, but I'll just let you say it first.
Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah. All right. I wasn't going to get Melbourne, but I was thinking Australia. All right. Did you have any question or comment to bring to the table, or are you here to hang out with us?
No, I haven't got much to add.
Okay. Let me get back over here to chat, and then we got to get on to actually doing something with some hard drives here. So let's start skipping through, looking for question marks in orange. That's one question mark. Selden Ball, you need 3 question marks. So I may not catch it. Depends upon how expensive the recovery process is. And I know Londog has been got a sequence of things here, but I need to move on.
Chat. And I'm glad you enjoyed that video. The video performance was horrible on that. But I'm going to do a video.
All right, Sam, I have muted you. I don't know what that was. You had some other audio coming through. All right, so I'm going to move away from chat now and get on to this. So this laptop that I'm tasked with doing something with, that's what I'm going to turn to first. Rolling my chair over wires here. So I know that this computer won't boot from a USB. It doesn't serve any purpose really to boot it up and show you anything on it. I'm going to fix the focus there. So the next thing on my mind is simply open it up. Now, and then my option would be to connect it to a computer and wipe it, or just physically destroy it. And I think I will allow the chat room and Zoom to vote or persuade or request.
Just remove it.
And that looks like it's going to be Phillips. This looks like it's probably easy to disassemble. Grabbing a screwdriver. When I disassembled that drive, that SAS drive, I pulled out my magnetic pad that I use for screws, and they wouldn't stick to it because those screws are not magnetic or not made out of a metal that doesn't respond to magnetism. So I took a piece of Scotch tape, folded it back on itself, put that onto my magnetic pad, and secured the screws that way.
Interesting that a machine that old, if it had XP on it, there's not a more accessible spot to get at the hard drive.
Yes, absolutely, and that was the first thing I looked at, and I didn't demonstrate looking for that because a lot of the older laptops have a easily accessible cassette that'll slide out or a panel that'll open. And I've already opened this panel. It has it's just access to RAM and I think Wi-Fi card. Probably have to take that panel off. So I was disappointed to discover that. So then my next option was to boot to a USB for a wipe utility and do it that way. Although it was also on my mind just to use the clean command on, oh, come on. What's the word I'm looking for, Jim? The disk utility in Windows on the DOS prompt.
What, the disk part?
Disk part. Just use the clean command from that. So there we have a Wi-Fi card and we have a RAM module and another RAM slot there. And here's another screw. And these screws are coming out different sizes. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to what's where because this computer's not going to anybody. And I have not looked up any instructions for disassembling this. I've got those little holes here for the CD drive to open it.
Well, typically the drive is held in by one screw. You should be able to remove the entire assembly.
Yeah, if it slides out, yeah, I would think so. So let's try that. There's a screw here that looks like it would be, no, that's one of the screw holes for this panel that I took off. There's another screw. These screw openings have arrows pointing to them,
which typically indicates the ones you have to remove to get it disassembled. Yeah.
And sometimes there'll be an emblem indicating which one's for hard drive or for memory or something like that. These arrows all look the same without any specific reference of what they are for. And then here's some screws along here, but that doesn't look like they would be.
Look up the model on Google and there might be a teardown guide for removing the hard drive.
Oh yeah, there probably is. I usually always go look for manuals. I did not do it this time. I would always do it if it's a computer that I care about it surviving the process. But even if I don't care that it survives the process, it still could make the job go easier if I would have done it. When I looked at those the screws on the bottom, it immediately gave me the impression that it was just going to lift off very easily. Famous last words. And I may wind up giving up and going to find a manual for it. There's a little access door here. Ah, there I got something gave way here.
There's got to be something else holding that in.
Yeah, sure feels like it. Because this isn't what you call a gentle attempt to pull it off. Oh, but look at that. I think that's the hard drive right there.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a ribbon cable for it. Screws holding it in that go from the top down. Looks like there should be something right about the location of this foot here, but there's no arrow. All right, screw hole, screw hole, screw hole, screw hole, screw hole, there, there, there. Just checking to see that all these ones that are marked, that I've removed the screws.
Check where the battery
Oh,
goes.
this one. This one's interesting. There's two arrows here. Let's see, there. You can see the two arrows. So up here is a screw hole I removed. But right here is one that looks like it has some kind of a cover over it with a little tiny hole. You can see that kind of a gray round with a hole in it. It looks like that might be some kind of a cover that will pull out.
The other thing I would do is I might want to remove the Wi-Fi card and see if there's screws underneath it.
Whatever that is, that's metal. Okay, Wi-Fi card. A piece of black tape over one of the antenna leads. Antenna's loose. Card out. No screws. This is bending up the wrist pad, but the keyboard is stationary.
Yeah, bending up mostly. Are there tabs for the keyboard to come up? There may be some screws under the keyboard that have to be released.
Yep, that could be
Yeah,
possible.
that's a common thing where there's some kind of way to release the keyboard for it to come up. It's kind of fun to do this without any concern about putting the computer back together. Here we go. First broken piece. Yeehaw. Second broken piece.
Yeah, typically if you can't pull if you can't pull a cover off, there's got to be a screw holding it in. This question is, where is it? Where's it?
Right. Oh, look at that. How much shifting I get of the keyboard there. There we go. Yep. There's a threaded shaft that one of those screws would have been going into that I took out already. And then on this side there's one. So all the screws have been removed. This keyboard has this tab right there and a tab on the other side. So those tabs come in on the front side. You can see where they snap to, and those look like they are designed to be depressed intelligently in a way to release the board. And then, are there any screws here? Yes. Here's a screw. It's got one of those arrows pointing to it. Here's one with the arrow pointing to it. This one is an arrow pointing to it. And this is the one that was where I was pulling up this wrist area, and it was obviously secured right at the front of the keyboard somehow. Here it comes. Here's another one with an arrow.
Long Dog's he's like, look at what you got to go through just to replace the drive. Well, yeah.
Fortunately, I'm not trying to replace it.
Yeah, I've had so many of these very low-end HPs. I think they're a model of envy. They're very cheap ones. I've taken one of those apart so many times, I can usually get them apart in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just by sheer repetition. I'll get the right word out eventually.
As you commented before, it's been my experience that older laptops were a lot easier to get to hard drives, and we complain about the current, more recent laptops make it so difficult. Well, this is clearly an older laptop, and they certainly made it difficult.
It's a Vio. Is that still made by Sony?
I don't know about still made. I would suspect
The
yes.
older ones were Sony Vio.
Yeah. I can't think of any other manufacturer name that fits with the word
Well,
Vio.
unless Sony sold the operation to somebody, sort of like IBM sold their
Yeah.
stuff to Lenovo. The cheap laptops nowadays, they don't want you to fix them. I mean, it's as simple as that. They want you to buy another piece of junk.
Well, guess what? Apple wants you to do the same thing with your MacBook.
Oh, I know.
And
Yeah.
what's the most expensive laptop? Hello.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it always used to amuse me when people would bring me their 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old either iMac or MacBook, and I find out what was wrong with it, and maybe the drive had gone bad. Who knows? Whatever. I could literally charge them twice as much as I would for the same thing on a PC or Wintel type machine, and they would be happy to pay it because they didn't want to have to spend $2,000 on a new freaking Mac.
It's interesting. I stumbled onto some guy's YouTube channel the other day, tech channel, and he writes about computer stuff, but not repair or whatever, but he just uses a computer for a bunch of stuff. And he had this video on why he's dumping Mac and going to Wintel. He's using both, and it's because you can't upgrade it. He said, I've got a Mac, and all of a sudden I'm running out of memory to do what I need to do, and I can't upgrade the thing.
Oh yeah, especially if it's the M1 or the M2. So you'd forget that, dude. If you didn't pony up the money in the first place, you're screwed.
And on the same day, I stumbled onto another channel. Guy says, I'm done with IBM compatibles. I'm going to Mac. I guess
Yeah.
it depends what you want to do and your attitude about stuff. But to me, I used to tell folks years ago who just wanted something simple that would work and they didn't need a lot of horsepower, if you like it, go buy a Mac. I mean, it's there and it mostly sort of works.
Well, it works mostly because Apple, much like their iPhones and iPads, very tightly controls the hardware and the software.
Right. I mean, when you think about it, the PC world, the non-Mac PC world, it's a wonder that Windows works on a lot of these computers at all with all the different kinds of hardware they've got to support.
All right, so there's the drive, IDE connector.
Ow, that is old.
Yeah. So I do have adapters to connect it to a USB port that I could do the wipe utility, but the only reason why that'd be remotely of interest is to show how the wipe process works. But taking a drill and drilling straight through this, taking the cover off and breaking the platters, those would be my favorite. And these are Phillips screw heads. Now, another thing people are, I think, curious about is what the drive looks like inside. And that looks easy enough to get to, so we'll go do that. Well, okay, Wintermute's asking about the speed, so let me show you the label more clearly. Let me get the focusing fixed. Where am I focused at now? Yeah, I'm gonna change the focusing for a good close-up here. Let's see, I think it goes this way. Bottom left, well, middle left, we've got the capacity at 80 gigabytes.
Dear God.
There's a date on the right-hand side, 2005, February. Model MHT 2080 AT. Manufactured Thailand.
Date of 2005. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's probably 5,400 RPM.
Yeah, I haven't spotted an RPM.
No, I haven't either, but it's just based on its age. That would be my guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fujitsu drive, boy, that's old.
Old and slow. Ugh.
Well, that's okay. As early as well as late, depending on how you want to look at it. I've pulled apart 2018, 2019 laptops that have horrible Toshiba 5400 RPM drives, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yep, same.
And at this point, my thing is anybody, I don't care who it is, any manufacturer is still putting spinning hard drives in a machine, probably needs to be smacked upside the head. And any of them who are putting in 5400 RPM drives into anything should be shot.
Yep, but then shoot so I have a client with a laptop like that. Had to put an SSD in because she said it was too slow.
It's 2022, boys and girls. There's no reason to be putting a rotating drive in anything unless you need the storage capacity. That's about the only thing that makes them viable.
Yep, as a second drive, not your boot drive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, there's still I can network accessible storage, and
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yes, but even there, if you're running a NAS, my recommendation is 7200 RPM drives at a minimum.
when I was looking at the drive to put in for my backups on Big Beast build, I came across something that made the case for 5400 RPM um, on the theory or the explanation of vibration.
You
And
know that, yeah,
I'm
that
not
makes
gonna
sense.
argue one I'm not gonna argue one way or the other about it, but that was the case that they were making, and I don't know how well researched or informed that was. But
From a vibration standpoint, I can see that,
yeah,
but from a performance standpoint,
yeah. Well, if it's a backup drive, or even if it's for a NAS where you're not doing large files, it may be doable. Oh, you know what? These normally have a screw in the center of the platter, and maybe one also on
I don't know, even for a small home
yeah,
NAS, I'd
on
want a
the
7200.
screw on the head. So here's something worth pointing out. It says, I don't think this is done in more recent spinning drives because I don't think I have noticed this. I'm going to fix the focus here in the bottom left where it says "Do not cover." There's that little hole.
right.
That my recollection is that is to let atmospheric air pressure into um, certain areas of the drive. And I think that might be something that's no longer needed. Keep in mind this is an IDE drive. So now to find that those two other screws, what I've done before is feel around with the screwdriver to find them. Let's see if I can make a better exposure there too. There, that's better.
And he says Lenovo still puts 5400 RPM drives in some of their laptops. Man, yeah, they ought to be shot for that.
I know Acer does as well.
Well, that's an interesting shape around there. This has all kinds of shape under there. Oh, there's no screw hole on the spindle. There's a screw. Looks to me like that would be where the drive head is anchored. These are sealed to keep them airtight.
Now you could hear a pin drop right about now.
Yeah. I'm looking for something metal.
Long dog, you're voiding the warranty. I don't think we have to worry about that. Well, that really doesn't want to come off, does it?
No, it doesn't. I have opened drives before that were pretty easy. Ah, there I got a bite on it. See the red color around here? That's my blood. Don't worry about it.
Ooh. Yeah, back in the day, if you didn't cut yourself building a computer, you weren't doing anything.
Yeah, you weren't trying hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Some of those cases were just like, Jesus. Every time you just breathe on them, they'd slice you open.
Ah, there's a screw. But those would be for the circuit board, not for the cover. I think what I'm fighting against here is the seal.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me. God, the drive is 17 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm impressed that it lasted that long.
All right, I'm gonna grab something for my thumb. Hold on.
The oldest drives I ever took out of service were 13 years old, and they were still running. So, but that's rare, in my opinion.
So here's my current tool, flat bladed jeweler's screwdriver. There. There's my little bit of lift. It's starting to break that seal. I guess that black background isn't helpful. There we go. All right. Here's the platters. It's got 2 platters. It's got a head on the top and one of those arms in the middle that's reading the top and the bottom of 2 platters. And then a head at the bottom that would be reading the bottom side of the second platter. The disc spins and the heads move back and forth to read the data. All right. Now,
here's Steve Lato.
Had a few people send me a story. It's an update on the Arizona law regarding whether you can film the police while they're on duty.
Jeff, you're going to want to mute yourself.
Injunction.
I'm muted, Jeff.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so now I want something to, and I've never tried actually just breaking one of those platters. Oh, there it is. So here's the next collection of tools.
Chisel, I'm impressed.
You're impressed that I own a chisel?
No, I'm impressed that you're going to use a chisel on the thing.
Oh. Let's see. There it is. And I don't know. I think it would probably snap with a fairly clean break, but I'm going to use a towel over it just in case it has any fragments.
Oh, yeah. If that thing shatters in any way, yeah, you want to make sure it's covered.
Yeah. So there I'm getting a little bit of bend with it. Whoops. Well,
here goes the one.
Yeah. That's a shatter. That's a shatter. Got pieces shattered all over the desk. Now, let's see somebody recover that. There we go. There's the second one. Shattered in a bunch of little shards. I'm not going to clean up that mess on camera. I'll do that after ending stream. Do not try this at home. I'm a trained professional. You could give me a full-blown laugh, Jim, for that.
Well, you know, at least it looks like you know what you're doing anyway.
All right. And it looks like I attempted to take some precautions. That shattered a lot easier than I thought it would.
Well, yeah.
I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, those platters are not as sturdy as everybody wants to make them out to be.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they don't need to be sturdy against pressure. Yeah, and so now I got shards in my high-priced mouse pad for gaming. That probably wasn't a good choice. Band-Aid rubbing alcohol for your polysporin for your thumb. You can cut yourself, Ryan said a little while back. Both Well, I tell you what, I get working inside a computer like Kiri does, and I get these tiny cuts on my fingers that I don't feel till the next day. Just handling circuit boards and such without any visible cuts. You wouldn't believe some of the drives I had way back in IDE days. Let's see, scrolling through, constant use, orange, Band-Aid, rubbing alcohol. I've read that one already. Accident report. Yeah, let's see what OSHA thinks about that. Use some Windex on that hard drive. You'll wipe off the data. If you decide to break the platter, please make sure you're wearing glasses. I am wearing glasses. I can show you a video kind of explode, and the person was often surprised when it broke. It's actually from way back when Leo Laporte was doing his tech program. Now try to recover the data from that. Try to mark the drive with the blood of its prey. And Ryan laughing. If no blood is given to the task, you did not work hard enough. All right. We're just an hour and a half into it. We actually got into something hardware related. Oh, there's another thing in there that's of interest. I'm going to go show that. People might not be aware of what would be inside of a spinning drive. Up in the this corner right here, that white piece there, that's an air filter. Make sure that no fragments of dust come into the essentially what amounts to the intake side of the drive, because as these drives spin, it causes an air cushion that the magnetic heads actually float just a tiny amount above the platter. So I've read that many times, and so that's why if a hard drive gets a hard knock to it, you hit it while it's spinning, causes the heads to touch the platter, and that can damage the platter. And I'm figuring it damages it in a magnetic sense. Although it does, when I was doing using the pliers on it for the thumbnail, it defaced the platter pretty easily. So here, let's try this screwdriver. See what it takes to scratch it.
Shouldn't take much.
Yeah, I don't see when I bit on it with the pliers, it was really easy to see an indentation. Yeah, I can see scratches, but I put a pretty firm pressure on it. I'm trying to move the light around to see if I can make that scratch visible. Probably won't be able to. I think that's probably enough for that. Yeah, Long Dog agreeing with that. The head actually floats on a cushion of air. That's alien technology if I've ever heard of it. Yeah, and magnets, pulling magnets out of the 5 1/4 inch drive. Very strong magnets. The magnets in this one, not nearly as strong. You know, when you disassemble a hard drive, that you're supposed to be in a clean environment, absolutely zero dust particles in the air. Yeah, if you want to be able to use the drive again. In this case, not a problem. Now, I have seen, I believe, I recollect that I have seen YouTube videos of somebody having opened a drive and connected to a computer and actually being able to read files from it. I think it's very unreliable. They didn't do it for any length of time. And the explanation behind it is just the tiny fragment dust particles, atomic level size dust particles in the air that we breathe all the time, is enough to prevent the heads from being able to read the data. And the drive is a sealed environment. Now, how about that opening for the that air hole opening? Where does that show up? And what does that correspond to in the drive? So here's the lid back on, and that opening for the air. Is that on the bottom or the top? It was part of the label, wasn't it? Yeah, it was on the label. Where's the label? Oh, here it is. Okay, there, that mark was down here in this bottom left corner. Oh, there's the hole. That's the hole right there. So what's under there? Oh, that's interesting. That's open into this area. So these older IDE drives, they were actually open to atmospheric air. Apparently, that filter is way over here. That strikes me as surprising. Aren't we as a group a boatload of tidbits of information to pass along? Nice work, Doug. Doug, how many platters did have? I think it looks like it had two. Yeah, it had 2 platters, 3 heads. And let's see, can we? Yeah, I guess I can show that in the broken form, because now we can see the bottom platter. And then here's the top platter. And I don't really see anything interesting about the spindle. Looks to me like taking apart this spindle would be kind of coming apart in sections. Let's see, that's I think that's a Phillips screw. No, it's not. I'm going to do another close-up of that spindle. Oops. Oh yeah, so there you can see what kind of, it's a 6-pronged fastener in the middle. It's kind of like a Torx with rounded spikes. I don't know what the name of that bit is, but I'm pretty sure I don't have that. And then if we were to take that off, you can kind of see there are different levels on that spindle. You can see where the platter broke out of. So I'm suspecting that maybe the spindle, this top piece would come off, and then you've got a platter. Take the platter off, and you have the next separator between the discs. Looks like it might come off like that. And it's not only the the fastener in the middle of that, but around the perimeter, there's 4. Looks like there's 4 fasteners. Star, William says, for the name of that socket. What was the maximum number of platters used in production? Yeah, I understand the question, but I don't know the answer. I think I've seen at least 4 platters, but I think there's drives that had more than that. Maximum density of a platter. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not up enough on the science to answer that, but interesting questions. After they created the maximum density on a platter, how to date increase the data storage? It's my understanding is as the technology developed, they found ways to store the magnetic data or signals on tinier and tinier fragments of atoms, I'll say, whatever the particles are inside these that can hold a magnetic charge one direction or another. There's polarity one direction or another. That's my understanding of how they would set zeros and ones. So they make those tinier and tinier. Now, also, it's my understanding, so I could stand to be correct on this, but the way I've seen it in illustrations is you've got the round platters and they make tracks, and then think of pizza pie shaped sectors, lines that cut through. And then in each of those segments, let's see, would that be a cluster? No. I think there's a word for each one of those arcs between 2 sectors. And out at the outer rim of the disk, the amount of data that they would store there would be the same as the inside of the disk and the inner rings that are going to be a shorter amount of distance, so less physical matter for them to store the same amount of whatever the data fragment is called there. And I'm talking off the top of my head here. I cannot claim to know what I'm talking about there, but that's my recollection. All these questions about lead to our modern 15 and 20 terabyte hard drives. Yeah, exhaust hole, maybe. Angular velocity. Why do you hard drives change speed? You need a special tool to take that spindle apart, remove the platters. There's an actual press in a machine that does it. That makes sense. That maybe taking that screw out isn't enough. Link explaining the hole in the drive cover. So that looks like a web page. What's the purpose of the holes marked do not cover? Any hard drives, what's the purpose of the hole? Why would covering it damage it? It allows for equalization of air pressure between inside and outside of the drive. It's not a complete pass-through of outside air. There's a diaphragm filter inside the hole that allows pressure to equalize. Really? It looked like a hole straight through to me. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, there we go. That helps. Here's that hole. Let's see. There's the focus. Now, what's on the other side of that hole? Notice you can't see my desk through that hole. So here on the other side, this is what's being referred there as a diaphragm. There's no visible openings around that entire thing. So that's not letting atmospheric air into the drive. But what it may be doing is this, what they're referring to as a diaphragm, is a little spongy. So maybe just that amount of it being able to expand or contract is what is causing this effect. And now here they have the word diaphragm scratched out. with a strike through in it. Not a complete pass through of outside air. There is a filter inside the hole that allows pressure to equalize. If the drive were completely sealed, operating at altitudes significantly different from those the drive was manufactured and sealed would cause problems and increase the likelihood of catastrophic failures. This system works in much the same way as eustachian tubes that allow our ears' internal pressures to equalize, preventing the explosion or implosion of our eardrums. Update. Per Moab's correction, it's a filter, not a diaphragm. So that strike through up here was a correction from Moab. The way it works and the reason it is included remains the same. All right. Very good. So we got that one answered. The hard drives, guys, when they disassembled a hard drive, has a special tool to remove the platters from the motor. It looks like a Torx. I believe it's called a star bit. RPM divided by 360 divided by 60. Okay, well that was chat between those two that I'm a little bit out of the loop on. Skipping through a little bit. Star from William. Circular track where the data is placed on the platter. Think of the circular track where the data is placed on the platter. What they did was they started to write on the sides of the wall in the groove like it was a record. Okay. Think of a circular track where the data is placed on the platter. What they did was they started to write on the sides of the wall in a groove like it was a record. Interesting. Okay, I'm starting to vision a circular shape rather than just my flat circular circles, concentric circles, and pie shapes. Now that's kind of got me thinking about a circular track that has a depth to it. He's referring to the sides of the wall. Kind of like around a racetrack, there might be a fence all around the side. That fence has a depth to it. And I'm wondering if that's what we're got in the drives. Then we moved on to the technique of starting bits instead of in 8-bit form and 4-bit form. There's actually data storage in a 2-bit form, something of that nature. Don't forget to like the video as Doug injured himself to make it. Blood, sweat, and tears. Is it possible those holes are where they put gas into the drive, as they do in high-density drives, as they use helium or they use vacuum? And I think because of that diaphragm that we saw inside, that's not likely the case. But before we saw that was a reasonable idea. Seeing those kinds of holes on floppy disks. I remember holes in floppy disks. I figured they were for location tracking so that the computer can identify a starting point or a static point on the disk. You want to discuss some physics engineering? Let's talk about reading those insanely small circles where the data is stored. They're so small that temperature stabilization becomes an issue. It was a problem on early drive technology, so how they design a drive to be temperature stable. We are so used to starting the drive that is cold and reading and writing to it that we don't even think about how temperature stabilization was a problem and how they corrected that. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff in all these technologies. So I'm looking for questions or other topics, and if we don't have content to keep us going, then we'll be ending this here live stream. Back to the chat room. Any comments, questions, other final thoughts from the chat room, Zoom room?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So, can we safely conclude that I have achieved my client's request?
I would say so.
I'm not going to show the laptop. I'll put this in a bucket and take it to my next recycling trip, which is how I dispose of things. All right, so I'll thank you all for watching, for hanging out with me in the Zoom session and in the chat room. And until we meet again. So in Zoom, would you please give an audible goodbye to the audience?
Good night, John.
Hi,
Boy.
Doug.
Good morning. Goodbye.
Okay, good night,
All right.
Jesse.
Have a good rest of your day, Sam. It's just started.
Later.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Ending the Zoom meeting. Then come back here to display my email address. If you'd like to send a question that I could respond to one of my videos, you're welcome to do that. If you'd like to offer up your computer situation or symptom that I could connect to remotely and work with you on trying to solve it, either in a live session or in a recorded session for later publishing, that would be another reason for sending me an email. All right, that's it for now. Have a great day. I hope that was useful. I'll catch you later. Goodbye.